What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Legends of Tomorrow, Season 5, Episode 14, the one where we're all trapped on TV. And what an interesting concept, especially for when it came out, because I looked to see when the release date was. It was March of 2020, or May of 2020, one of the two. But yeah, around the time that maybe people should have just turned off their TVs and stopped listening to everything they were being told. Just maybe. And maybe we wouldn't still be dealing with all of this stupid stuff that they're still trying to use to make sure that nobody's asking too many questions. I mean, seriously, that it's so ironic because I know the show writers behind the show, more than likely, I know where they are probably leaning politically. So to see this message and just really think about it in the sense of everything that's happened over the past couple years, I don't know. It's very intriguing, and I wonder what their thought process was when they were writing this episode. Like, obviously, it was written before all of the crazy stuff started happening. Because if it was released early 2020, then it was probably filmed and written before 2020. So I just wonder though, like, what they were writing this in reference to, if it was in reference to anything, or if it was just kind of think for yourself. Make sure you question things. Don't just listen to things that you're being told, just in kind of a general sense. And then all of a sudden 2020 did happen, and it became a lot more important of a message, because a lot of people still to this day are just like, oh, well, so and so said this, so that means it must be true, without doing any research. Without realizing that people, just because they're in fields of expertise, does not mean they won't lie to make more money or are not being paid to lie. Like, it's very possible for people that are telling you this stuff to lie. So maybe do your own research, maybe question everything. But that's basically kind of what this episode was all about. So kind of interesting. And again, I don't, probably not in reference to 2020 and everything that happened, but in light of everything that happened in 2020, it is kind of an interesting episode for when it came out. But yeah, all in all, I mean, it was a good episode. The problem is, you take the concept of the legends being trapped in TV shows, in sitcoms and Friends and Star Trek and Downton Abbey, all of these shows, now the legends are a part of it. That's a great concept. However, it's the legends are trapped in all these TV shows while Mona and Gary are outside trying to do their part too. Every single time it cut to them. Like, and don't get me wrong, I understand why they were out there. Honestly, I was kind of thinking you could have just written it where Charlie basically came up with a plan on how to outsmart her sisters. Because I thought that's what they were going to do. When Mona and Gary came in and Charlie's like, you messed everything up. I thought, honestly, it was like, yeah, you messed up my plan. I was trying to do this just to buy them time to figure out something to take down my sisters or something along those lines. So I don't understand why Charlie's first thought was like, oh, I know how to outsmart my sisters by giving them everything they want, and I'll make a deal for the legends' lives. Because surely they won't mind being brainwashed and put in this simulation where they don't have their own choice or their own free will. Surely the legends who've constantly lived outside of the barriers of time and outside of the rules for so long, surely they'll enjoy being part of this society and spitting out this info of like, oh, just trust the fates, don't question things, just do your part. Surely they'll like that, right? Like, I'm sorry, Charlie, do you know the legends? Do you know yourself? I know she's Clotho now, so maybe out of fear she reverted to like this past self where she was like, okay, I'll do whatever you want. But the Charlie that I've known for the past season or so would not be the type to just be like, okay, I won't question you. I'll just do what you say. Okay, I'll do what you want. That's not Charlie. Charlie was a rule breaker. Charlie was somebody who would break the system. She wouldn't want to be a part of it. She wouldn't want to be contributing to it. So I feel like that was a poor character decision for her. And then on top of that, like I said, it means now that Mona and Gary have to be the heroes that step in and be like, oh, we're going to help the legends. Which, I don't mind the fact that they end up being the ones that help, and I don't mind how they helped. But it's Mona and Gary. Gary can be funny at times, but he needs people to be working off of. Because Gary on his own is not funny. I'm sorry. As a character, he's just not funny. I'm not nothing against the actor that plays him. I think he's playing the part perfectly fine. But as a character, Gary is not funny. He needs people riffing on him, making fun of him, because that's what's funny about Gary to me. Mona is just not a good character, and she's also not well acted. Don't know if it's the actress's fault or if it's the director's fault, but she's just not a good actress. She's awful. Just you listen to some of her line deliveries, and you'll swear that this world was meant for her. Just the robotic way that she delivers her lines is just perfect for a world where people don't go outside of the boundaries and they just stay in their own little lane, and that's all you need to do. That's Mona's performance. So I just don't want to see her. So when it starts with her, I'm like, great, here we go. We're going to get to see Mona. And just the scenes in her apartment where she's watching the show, I get why we had to see her watching the show so she could be like, oh, they said my name. That means there's something else going on here. I need to start questioning things. So I get why they did that. Doesn't mean it was good. When they're cutting out of the TV show, we already hear, the laugh track playing whenever they're making jokes on, what was it? Something buds. That concept for me was just really funny. They even had the little marijuana leaf symbol. It was well done. But they play the laugh track, and then they cut to Mona, ha! Just laughing to herself outside, and not convincingly. Like, it literally sounded something like that. And I'm like, we really just spent about 5 seconds that I'm not going to get back leaving this world of the TV to go cut to Mona laughing at the TV, which we're already hearing from the laugh track. We don't need to know that she's laughing at the laugh. Duh. Obviously she finds it funny. We don't need to know that. You don't have to show us that. But yeah, so Mona and Gary for me in this one was just, it was frustrating whenever they cut back to them. Even though they were part of the story, I understood why they were there. I still wish the writers could have just written something more clever for Clotho to have come up with, so that way Mona and Gary wouldn't have even had to be involved. Maybe Gary is involved on the outside. Maybe it would have been funny because this idea that Gary is this guy who's just crazy. He's like, this isn't right, and he's somehow the only one who remembers what all happened before. That could have been kind of a funny concept, because then again, everybody would be making fun of him. He's just the crazy guy, right? He's just the guy that believes that this world isn't real. Like, stupid. So it would have been kind of funny to see him maybe questioning everything because he still remembers what happened before, and then he goes and maybe Clotho then tells him what her plan is, and that could have been the story instead of you bring back Mona because... But as far as all the characters within the TV, some really good moments throughout. First of all, Zari coming back was really well done, I thought. I did kind of wonder why she wasn't able to do this earlier, though. Like her basically spirit possessing the new Zari's body. There's that question of, well, why did she wait so long to do this? Maybe it was because whatever is going on with Clotho and the Fates, maybe that set it off, possibly, or I don't know. It seemed a little weird that it's like, oh, well, now we're going to do this so that way she can help everybody remember, because she was somehow not affected by whatever the Fates did. Don't know how, but okay. And then also seeing kind of where that leads to, we do get Nate and Zari back together again, which is, it's fine. They were not a couple that I was extremely excited to see. They weren't Barry and Iris, they weren't even Cisco and Camilla, honestly, but they weren't bad. They were a fine couple. They had some good moments. So to see them back together is pretty nice. And then also to see that Clotho basically gives us two Zaris now, and they remember both timelines with, where Zari was a legend and where Behrad was a legend. Also very interesting, and I don't know what they're going to do with this, because it seems like the regular human brain would not be able to comprehend the idea that, wait a minute, what am I remembering? Because this memory that I have, I'm pretty sure that was with Behrad, but no, I think that was with Zari. I feel like that's going to drive them insane if they remember both timelines. So I don't know if they'll address that or if they'll just be like, oh no, it's fine, they can remember both timelines and not be affected. I kind of hope they don't do that, but they could very well end up doing that. So we'll see what happens. But But yeah, having both Zaris there is going to be an interesting concept to see and see how they tackle it. I wouldn't be surprised if one of them dies by the end of the season. Kind of hope it's the Zarya from this season, because she was not really one of my favorite characters. She had a couple good moments, but she wasn't really that fantastic to watch. Very conceited and annoying at times. But seeing that she gets Bayrod back, that was a nice moment. The scene where everybody remembers everything honestly got me pretty emotional. Like, just seeing all these scenes, especially because everything's been so lighthearted and fun and everybody's upbeat and all that stuff. To see basically going through all these scenes and just seeing the real emotion that's there. And honestly, the acting on the show is not something that I typically talk about unless it's really bad, like Mona. But yeah, this scene was really well done. Like, first of all, seeing these emotional scenes, you get to see some of the best acting in the season. Basically highlights of the acting throughout the season. But also seeing their reactions to remembering everything, I thought it was spot on. Just that kind of feeling of, wow, this is everything we've been through. Like, just having that reflection and remembering all this stuff that happened, all these emotional things that happened, it would evoke a lot of emotion out of a person. So I thought they captured that really well with the shot. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to expect for the final episode. Constantine and Astra, I thought had a really good moment as well. And it seems like she's now kind of at that point where it's like, you know what? I could get my mom back, but it's not really what I want. I'm tired of being controlled by this idea that fate is destined. I just need to take control of my own life, type of thing. Constantine even reconciles with her in this episode, so I thought that was also really well handled. I'm trying to remember if there's anything else that stood out. Some really funny bits, like with Constantine and Astra being the owner and the butler, basically. Constantine's reaction whenever he does get his memory back, and he's like, "Oh, Charlie, put me in the butler." Really well done there. But yeah, I think that's about it for this episode. So on to the finale. Hopefully it's going to be good. I'm excited to see what they're going to do with it. But yeah, here we go. See you there. And finally, episode 15, Swan Thong. I'll be honest, I've never heard Thong Song before. I know that's surprising, considering, I totally look like somebody who would listen to Swan, or Thong Song, totally, 100%. I didn't need to hear it. It is funny, because, we could put that in the Museum of Bad Things. It's perfectly fine. I have to believe that the artist, because I'm pretty sure that was actually him singing and dancing as well. I have to believe that he had a good sense of humor to let them put him in the Museum of Bad Decisions, because that is kind of hilarious. But yeah, as far as that whole scene was concerned, again, not like something I'm super like, oh, I can't believe they got that song, but it's very Legends to have that song playing for a fight scene, and then when it gets cut off, Nate's reaction, everybody's like, thank God, Nate, come on! So that was really funny. But yeah, I mean, good ending for the season. Not fantastic. There were some things that felt maybe a little rushed, but the one thing that I will say, and this is just in reference to the other CW shows, this one had an ending. This one ended the story that they've been telling all season. So that for me makes it the best finale out of all of the CW finales this run of seasons, because their whole thing was trying to stop the Fates. Basically, I mean, it started with the Encores, but what we didn't realize is the Fates were actually behind it the whole time, because Lachesis was helping Astra do all of this. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of where the story went, and that's what it ended on. And yes, there's a bit of a cliffhanger with Sarah being abducted by aliens, I guess. Don't know where that's going to go, which is kind of very random that happened. But yeah, as far as everything that happened in this episode, though, first of all, kind of how everything moved before they destroyed the loom, I thought it was very well done. Seeing the team kind of work together again, seeing them take their different duties and, find the Wave Rider, get to the loom. It's kind of interesting that they destroyed it not in the way that they planned to, because it seemed like John was going to be able to destroy it with his magic, but then I guess they did it by, I don't know why knocking Atropos into the loom destroyed it. I don't really know exactly what happened with that. They didn't really explain it very well, but whatever. They managed to defeat Atropos. They destroy the loom as well. And what's interesting about that is it seems as though Lachesis then became just a normal human, possibly. I don't really know exactly. Like, they didn't do a good job of explaining what happened after, because obviously we see that Lachesis has turned Gideon now into essentially the new loom. She's basically running an algorithm and telling people what to think and what to feel, which again, very interesting because it's gone from the media and TV shows telling you kind of what to think and people just giving in and listening to it, and now we've gone to your phones, your technology, basically controlling your every life. Hey, what should I do? What should I do? Again, very poignant considering you think about Google and all of these different algorithms that Google runs. If you type in something, it goes through an algorithm and spits you out a ton of things that the algorithm tells you about. And who's in charge of that? Well, people who probably been paid off to make sure the algorithm has maybe given you some other stuff. Like, there's a ton of stuff in these 2 episodes that, I mean, obviously people will be like, oh, you're just a conspiracy theorist. But there's really some thought put into this, because you do have to question. You do have to question everything. You can't just go in and be like, hey, you know what? I trust this one person. I trust there's no way he's going to lie, so I'm just going to believe everything he tells me. Because everybody's going to have their reasons why they're going to lie. Everybody is. It doesn't matter who they are. As long as they're a human, there's a chance that they could be lying to you. So it's just been very interesting over these 2 episodes to watch that kind of moral be really, I thought, well done. And in a way that people on both sides of the arguments that have been happening for the past 2 years, honestly, people on both sides can look at this and be like, you know what? I can take something out of this. I can see how maybe it's not a good idea to just be like, okay, well, I'm going to follow this one thing, and whatever this one thing tells me, that's the truth. You do have to look into some of it yourself, too. Like, it's very important. So anyways, but yeah, as far as Lachesis after the loom is destroyed, I feel like they could have done a bit better job of explaining kind of where she is now, because Clotho eventually goes and tracks her down at the end and finally does turn it around. I did like the scene, by the way, that people were sort of calling her out, like, this is not you, Charlie. This is not the Charlie that we know that would have just stood up against all of this. I thought they did a good job of at least voicing my frustration with how Charlie was acting, but I also think they did a good job of showing it was more so out of fear of her sisters, because she felt like her sisters were right, and her sisters did make a lot of good points, and she was scared to stand up to them. So I'll accept that, because oftentimes, the most rebellious people became that rebellious because they were constantly living under, somebody else's control, basically. So when they get out, that's when they get to show how rebellious they can be. So I could see that being Charlie for so long lived under her sister's grip and control that she did go full rebellious when she finally got out from that grip. But being back with her sisters kind of reverted her back to how she was before. So I can accept that. I'm glad they did show a bit of that. But yeah, she goes to find her, and then she tells her she forgives her. And I don't know, they have this conversation, and Charlie's like, you're human now. And I don't really get exactly how all that worked. Like, I don't feel like, I don't know, did destroying the loom cause that? Did the fact that one of the sisters died, does that mean that now their immortality is gone because one of the sisters died? Like, they didn't really give a good explanation, I don't think, as to why that is the way it was now. It seemed very random and out of nowhere that they're just all of a sudden, oh yeah, now Lachesis is human, and we have no idea what she's going to do now. Charlie just sort of leaves her there, feeling down and depressed about herself. So yeah, I don't know, just feel like a little too open-ended. Because I don't mind if you want to leave some things vague, or if you don't want to explain every little detail, because you shouldn't have to. But I feel like they didn't really give us enough in that scene, at least from what I could tell, to really understand exactly where Lachesis is. Like, is she powerless now, or is she doesn't have enough power to really do anything? Because I think her thing in the Sisters of Fate was she could see how long people's lives were going to be, but it's not like she could actually control that. Like Clotho, I think, was actually able to make the loom, and then Atropos was able to actually cut it off. So what else? What else? Sarah losing her powers. I mean, it makes sense. She did get her powers from Atropos. Still have no idea why that was possible in the first place. Like we still don't know anything about why Sarah was able to survive that and why she transferred some of the powers into herself. I'm the best guess is that she's a paragon. That's the only thing I can think of. But they still didn't really clarify that, and I thought we were going to get some answer by the end of the season. But maybe that'll be something that they discuss a bit more next season. And then trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, Mick, they have him reunite with his daughter, and I mean it was a nice scene. And by the end of it, again, I don't like that they're turning him much more human and much more kind of like an actual dad. But I don't know. Maybe it'll be interesting. I like the scenes though when he's trying to do what he thinks a good dad does, but he goes over the top with it because that's who Mick Rory is. That's the type of Mick Rory being a dad that I want to see. I don't want to see him at the end where she's like, "Oh, can we go see?" I don't remember what band she said, and he's like, "Ah, it's a school night, maybe on the weekend." Like, that's not really funny or interesting or different. It's just that's what a dad would say. Yes, they're traveling back in time, so there's that element of it. But I don't know. I like the scenes, where he buys the building because that's what the other dad did, or what was the like he goes back through time and tries to be there at all of her big moments. I don't know, just all of those things that are not quite right. I prefer that side of it, and I hope they do a bit more of that next season if we do explore it more. But yeah, I think that's about all the other little side stories throughout. The big one for me, though, was Behrad and Zari for this, because we do see, now that there are two Zaris, what that means for the timeline, because there are technically two timelines that are happening at the same time, and obviously that's not going to work. Like, it's not possible. So we do see, ultimately, this other Zari being here from a timeline where Behrad died. It starts to affect him in a way where now that timeline is trying to make itself real, so he's starting to die again. So she ends up having to go back into the totem to keep him alive. Basically, kind of, he sacrificed himself for her, so now she's going to sacrifice herself to help him. So it was a nice moment. The two things that stood out, first of all, I do wish we'd gotten a little bit more time to this, because it was very much like he finds out that he's bleeding, that the gunshot wound is bleeding now, and Zari realizes it's because she's there, or, well, past Zari finds out it's because she's there. And it just happened all very quickly. Like, both Zaris see that he's bleeding, past Zari realizes why, and then instantly makes the decision, I have to go back into the totem. I get why they needed to do that, and that's where, by the end of it, I was okay with it, because I realized ultimately what this was. It was a chance for the team to truly say goodbye to Zari, because last season we didn't get that. Last season the timeline changed and Zari was just gone, and the team had no idea, so there was no real goodbye. So it's almost like they gave this moment where they brought these two Zaris together at the same time, but they had to give a reason why the other Zari had to leave. So that's the reason they came up with. So I get that, and I appreciated that scene, because it was kind of emotional. Like, oh, now they're actually saying goodbye this time, instead of, last time where just no goodbyes happened. I just wish we had maybe a little bit more time where maybe they see that Behrad is suffering or something along those lines. Like, they see he's bleeding and they don't really know what's going on. Maybe they find out, about halfway through that because this other Zari is here, that means he's dying because that's what happened in her timeline. And then maybe by the end of it, they're debating, what do we do? Maybe being away from him, maybe that will help. And then that's when she comes to the realization, no, I have to go back into the totem. And she makes that decision. Instead of it just being such a quick, like, boom, 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 she makes the decision. So, but yeah, all in all, I mean, it was a fine end of the season. Charlie going back to her band as well, I thought was a good decision for her, because she definitely seemed very happy singing Mr. Parker's Cul-de-sac, the rock version. I'm not gonna lie, that that's more my music, and it was just hilarious to hear her. As soon as she broke into, Welcome to the Cul-de-sac, I'm like, oh my god, they're doing this, and it's hilarious, but also kind of awesome. But she definitely seemed very happy being there, and it makes sense for her character too, because she has had so much time being with this team that's really brought this other side out in her, where she can be rebellious and she can make her own choices and not worry about what her sisters think. But now it's kind of to a point where she's not really going to be rebellious anymore, but she's going to live her own life. And I think that's kind of, it's also a good message for a lot of people, because I think some people, they take the whole idea of I'm going to live my own life way too far, to the point where they're doing things that are harmful to them, but they're like, YOLO, I don't care. And that's kind of what Charlie, I think, was doing when she was doing all this party stuff and rocking out and all of that. So now she's kind of getting to the point where it's like, okay, I can live my own life, but I'm going to live my life and do what I want to do. Maybe a bit more responsibly, but just at least be myself. And I think that's a really good decision for her character from here. So she might pop out every now and then, but I like that ending for her character for now. So, but yeah, I think that's about it for this season. So, all in all, it was a good season. Much better than the last season, because Mona was not nearly as involved. The episodes where she was were definitely the low points of the season, but there were some good ideas. The encores I thought was well done, well handled for the majority of it. It was goofy, but that's kind of the Legends, what I expect out of them. They are a goofy team. It's a goofy show. So yeah, there were a lot of episodes that I felt like if this were done in any of the other CW shows, it would not have worked. But because it's Legends of Tomorrow, this is kind of what I expect. There were some weird decisions here and there throughout the season as a whole, but I thought for the most part it all worked together, and it was one good cohesive story. It had an end as well, which, again, something the other CW shows decided not to do for whatever reason. Yeah, I am looking forward to the next season, which is, again, not something that I can really say about the other three at the moment. So at least it's got that going for me. But yeah, all in all, solid season and a good ending. That's about it. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on these 2 episodes and the season as a whole? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all the good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Legends of Tomorrow reviews, and I'll see you guys at the next season. Peace out.